Hey guys, I just finished up editing this new video for this antenna that you've been waiting for. So here it is. Sorry for the long wait. Fair warning, this is probably one of the hardest antennas that I build. The small pieces, careful soldering, and just precision construction make it pretty hard to make. So if this is your first build, consider one of the other projects that's out there. I got a few more videos coming on antenna builds, some of which are going to be much easier, so maybe consider one of those first. But enough yakking at ya. Here you go. Enjoy the show. Hey, what's up my YouTube friends? As promised, we're going to get started on some antenna videos here. First, we're going to show you how to build this one. This guy is a 9-to-1 NON for a random wire antenna, particularly for use with a KX2 or KX3. But this thing's tiny. It's built onto the back of a BNC connector. It takes up almost no space in your pack. You can make an antenna that'll run 60 through 10 meters with the KX2 or KX3 internal tuner. That weighs about 1.5 ounces on an antenna winder. Pretty cool, huh? Let's get started. So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to need for this project. As you can see, we obviously need a BNC connector for this. The BNC connector is a special kind. These are available on Amazon. Pretty easy to find, but they've got a special solder window that you can see. You can see that pin right in there. Special solder window that allows you to build the antenna right onto the BNC in this way. We're going to modify this a little bit, but we'll get to that later. Second thing you need is a toroid. You need these FT50-61 toroids. These things are pretty cheap. Amidon is a good high quality brand. There you go, focusing up for you. They're about 1/2 inch in diameter, hence the numeric size. And the -61 mix I've found works the best for these transformers for broadband use. You need some magnet wire. This is just 24 gauge standard magnet wire. You need a little bit of epoxy. I prefer this 5-minute epoxy. Happen to have a couple bottles here. You need some antenna wire. Take your pick, 26 gauge nylon jacketed steel or the 30 gauge stuff from Amazon. I like the silicone coating on the outside, works quite well. Nice lightweight in this 30 gauge stuff, and then of course more durable if you go with the 20 gauge nylon jacketed steel. To finish it off, you just need a little bit of heat shrink. I prefer the clear for the external coating, just big enough to fit over the outside of the toroid, a little bit bigger than a BNC connector. So that's probably about 5/8 inch or maybe, yeah, I'd guess around a 5/8 inch heat shrink tubing. And then the real thin stuff, of course, for attaching the antenna wires there. So my first step in this project is going to be to modify this BNC connector a little bit. See the sharp 90-degree edge up here? I want to round that off because that's going to cut into my wire later if I'm not careful. So I'm going to get my Dremel tool out and get started on that. There we go. I'm just going to shave this down a little bit right here. Give a nice clean spot to solder to for the ground. Got that there. Do a little cleanup here. Some of those bird edges. And a little bit more. And there we go. That's going to be a lot easier to work with and give me a nice solder pad for the ground right in there. Alright, so we are going to make what's called TriFiler winding on here, but I'm not going to wind them all together. I'm going to wind them individually. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to leave some space for extra windings in between. Now I know all of you want to watch a 30-minute video of me winding a toroid, but we'll get this started and then we'll speed it up. Try not to bore the heck out of you.
Alright, we finished the first time around. Now we're going to follow up with a second time around, just right in packed next to that last round we put. Now I know a lot of people hate winding toroids. Try winding toroids on camera. Let's see, I'm packing those windings in right next to each other there, making sure they don't cross. Alright, so this end of the wire here is going to go to my main radiating element of the antenna, and I need to make a tap right here on this wire for basically for the ground. I'm sorry, for the feed point. That needs to go to the feed point of the BNC. So I'm going to twist this just like that. Get that started. I'm going to take this guy, because that's going to need to poke right back toward the center of the BNC and connect with that center conductor there. So we need one more wrap on this for this TriFiler winding, and that end of that wire will go to the ground. And we are done. Snip that a little shorter. Here's our wound toroid. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it sure will work. Can probably pack some of these windings together a little more and kind of give you the picture a little clearer. But it looks like we made about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 TriFiler turns there in the end. Oftentimes you'll see people winding TriFiler toroids with 3 wires already connected in parallel. You can do that too, but I find this to be a really good, solid, easy way to build this toroid. So again, this one sticking out toward the outside here is going to go to my ground and my counterpoise. The one that's twisted here in the center is going to go to the center feed point of the BNC. And this guy up here that sticks out, that one is going to the radiating element of the antenna. Let's move on to the next step. So I've shortened up all the wires about to where I want them, and now I'm going to burn off the coating. You can also scrape it off with a razor blade. I find this to be a very easy way to initially do it. See if I can do this without burning myself. That's the other key part here. Alright, that looks pretty good. I think I can clean up the rest with a razor blade here. Basically, we want to get as much off of that as we can so the solder will stick to this readily. If it's too dirty, the solder just won't stick. We'll have problems getting it to solder together. Well, we'll give that a shot and see what happens. Let that heat up a little bit. So one tip as we solder this BNC connector, I've really found that it helps to have it connected to one of the female connectors to absorb some of the heat, act as a heat sink. Oh, I already lost a solder blob there down onto the center conductor, but that's okay. I'll just use it to tin that. There we go. Make sure we don't short anything out. I've got a little bit, let's see. Got a little bit of tinned solder onto the base there for the ground. That's going to be key later. Try to get this solder pad spread a little bit further over. That's where my counterpoise, my grounder are going to attach. There we go. So you can see I've now got a nice solder pad along the ground portion of the BNC and a tinned pin in the center, so I'm ready to solder stuff together. These things are getting pretty hot, so I'm going to let this cool down a little bit before I add any more heat to it and possibly deform or damage the dielectric inside. Alright, next up I'm going to solder my antenna wire. This is going to be the kind of the blunt end of the radiating element to the right part of the toroid here. Cover that with a little bit of heat shrink to protect it so it doesn't short out. And that's going to end up going around and out through the center of the BNC. So we'll do one more solder connection here. This is going to be our counterpoise stub. This gets soldered to the ground case of the BNC. So I need a little bit of tin solder onto my wire here so it'll stick. There we go. I'm going to solder this right on here. Oops. And there we go. So you can see the two pieces here that need to go together. This wire coming out of the toroid needs to come out the center of the BNC, right up here. It needs to go in from the bottom, come out the top. So I'm going to start by getting that threaded in. It's a tight fit with this wire. And then I need this to come out over the top. So you can kind of see what's going on here, right? Feeding this wire down in, pulling it through, and then that twisted stub, that feed point, needs to get soldered to that center conductor of the BNC when we're done. So let's see if we can get this to finish up here. Try to snug that up. Alright, I'm going to need to get out the tweezers for some of this, because this gets really tricky in here. So I got all that in there pretty good. Now I got to try to get this center conductor soldered together without shorting anything out. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Might need a finer tip on this bad boy. Alright, I got that center conductor soldered again. Had it on before and broke it off, but I think I got it now. Final piece is getting this ground element connected. So we got a little creative here, extending this ground wire out. I cut this magnet wire here a little too short, and I need those two to connect. So let's make that happen here. I'm not too worried about insulating this stuff. I'm going to coat it all with epoxy, and I'll just make sure that that stuff is protected and not shorted out on anything when I go to finish it off. So, solder those guys together. There we go. So that's essentially it, with no epoxy on it, no heat shrink on it. 9-to-1, center feed coming out here, counterpoise coming out here. This isn't the prettiest one I've ever made, but you know what? It'll work. So let's get some epoxy on this. Getting some epoxy going here. So there we go. We've got this thing coated with epoxy now. You can see it all in there. I try to make sure I don't get it where I don't want it on the BNC, so it'll bind things up. But I do definitely try to get it in the end of the wire there, where the center conductor comes out, so it holds that snug in place, and then just generally holds the whole toroid in place on the BNC connector. Now, you might wonder if the BNC connector being in the center of the toroid really impacts this much. I have not noticed that it does. For what it's worth, this seems to work quite well, even with that metallic BNC connector in the center of the toroid. So if I'm missing something as far as the physics goes behind that, let me know. Post up in the comments below and let me know your thoughts on that. So while this dries, I'm going to go clean up a little bit, put some of the tools away here, and then we'll finish up by putting the heat shrink tubing on the outside. So let's work this heat shrink into place. I think the glue's probably dry enough. See if it'll stretch over the top there. Yeah, I think I got it. There we go. Decided to go with the black heat shrink on this one. Get that shrunk into place. All right, we are set. So there you have it. Assembled 9-to-1 on a BNC connector. Have fun building your own. These things are pretty cool. Takes a bit of practice to get to where you can pull this off, but it's well worth it. So give it a shot.
Alright, so we got our antenna built. We're hooked up to the KX2. Cut 41 feet of wire for the radiating element and 17 feet for the counterpoise. Got it set up in a sloper configuration right now, and let's go ahead and see how it tunes. So we're trying 10 meters here first, 28 megahertz. 1-to-1 SWR on the tuner. 12 meters. 1-to-1 tuning. Let's try 15 meters. 1-to-1. 17 meters. 1-to-1. 20 meters. 1.1-to-1. Let's try 30 meters. 1-to-1. 40 meters. 1-to-1. 60 meters. 1-to-1. And just for kicks, let's try 80. The ground right now is pretty well saturated because it's been raining a lot here lately, and sometimes that helps get the counterpoise to feed into the ground a little more. The ground's more conductive, and 80 will tune up better. So let's see what happens. 1-to-1 on 80 meters even. Wow. So as you can see, this antenna is incredibly versatile. Does it work? Just because it tunes doesn't mean it's going to work, right? If you want to see a good example of this antenna in action, look up K8MRD Radio Stuff's video on this. I'll link it in the description below and check it out for yourself. He takes it out for a Parks on the Air activation, and that's his first attempt using it. And well, go check out the results. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you guys are successful in building this yourself. So until next time, 7-3 from Adam at K6ARK Portable Radio. We'll catch you later. Alright, so there you have it. Hope you guys have fun trying to build this one, and I really hope you're successful. If you're not, try again. It's well worth it. It's a cool antenna, and it's a great partner for the KX2 or KX3.